Have you ever wondered why an unanswered text will make your heart drop or you feel so anxious you feel like you're going to die? It's not because you're crazy, it's not because you're broken, and it's not because you're in love. It's because you have an anxious attachment style. In this video, I'm going to tell you what anxious attachment is, what nobody is telling you about it, and the 4 proven moves to finally begin to heal it. Hi, I'm Ana Del Castillo, and I've helped thousands of women break free from their anxious attachment and begin to really heal themselves. Okay, let me first explain its definition to you. Not the standard one, because I'm sure you've already heard that 1,000 times. Anxious attachment is one of the attachment styles first mapped by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth in the 1950s and 60s. And it develops in childhood in households where caregiving was inconsistent. Sometimes the love was there, sometimes it wasn't, but you couldn't as a child predict which or when that was going to take place. So as a child, your nervous system learned to make love appear, to monitor, to anticipate, to perform, please, to do whatever you needed to in order to bring the love or the warmth back to you. Now, as an adult, you bring that same pattern into your relationships. You need a lot of reassurance. You read into texts, you read into silences, you read into the tone that they're saying things in, or into the tone of a text that you got. You feel everything intensely, so much so that when your partner or family member or friend pulls away even slightly, your body reads it as a 5-alarm emergency. Now, that's probably the explanation that you've heard, and it's not wrong. There's a lot of that is true, but I think that it's the wrong angle. It's very good at describing the symptoms, but it misses the engine that's driving the car of this thing. So I want to take it down a level. Anxious attachment is not a style. Style implies that it's just how you are, like an eye color or something that's fixed about you. No. Anxious attachment is a strategy. Your nervous system developed it because the alternative was literally a feeling that you were going to be annihilated. So when you were small and the love was unpredictable, you had to do something. You couldn't just leave. You were a kid. You couldn't make a parent love you better, and you certainly couldn't make your household safe. But what you could do was monitor. You could track moods. You could read the room, and you could become whatever the person or the room required of you. You could hyper-attune to the slightest signal of withdrawal so you could move towards it before it became a full absence or break in belonging, which was terrifying for you as a child. You made yourself useful, agreeable, maybe beautiful, helpful, quiet, brilliant. Whatever was being rewarded that day or in your family dynamic, you did so that the love would come back to you, the warmth would come back to you, the acceptance would come back to you. And that strategy worked. It worked so well that it kept you alive. Congratulations. You're here watching this because you were brilliant and you came up with something that really, really worked. Okay? But here's what I need you to hear about this. You did not choose to be anxious. You did not fail at being secure. You were not too sensitive. You came by this honestly. You were a child whose nervous system did its job. And I'll say one thing before we move on, okay? Women, on average, develop anxious attachment more often than men do. The research on this is consistent. And there's a tendency in popular psychology to attribute this entirely to caregiving inconsistency from growing up. But the reality is that you cannot separate the caregiving from the world in which the caregiver operates. Women, generally speaking, are trained to be hypervigilant. We are trained to read rooms. We are trained to anticipate and manage. Trained in some cultures and households because hypervigilance is genuinely functional in a world that is just fundamentally not safe by default. So your strategy was correct when it was formed, and it is probably still functional in some of the situations that you're in now. But hear me when I say the problem isn't your strategy. Listen to me here. The problem is that you're running it on yourself and on the people who don't require it. Now you know that anxious attachment is a strategy, not a style. But do you know that there's a correct place to do your healing work? This is the thing that nobody ever tells people who have anxious attachment. The work is not done with the partner. The work is not done in the relationship. You could do some of it, but no, the lion's share of the work is not in the relationship or with the partner. The work is done in the silence. I want to explain to you what I mean by that. Anxious attachment doesn't show up when things are going well. It shows up in the gaps, the unanswered texts, the tone in someone's voice, the canceled plans or unexplained mood that someone's in, the conversation that didn't go where you thought it would or where you wanted it to go. Any space, any silence, any uncertainty between you and the other person, that is where your panic lives. That's where the panic of this attachment lives. And here, please listen to me about this. And here is what your panic does in that silence, in those gaps. It tells you you are about to be abandoned. Like right now, that this is the beginning of the end. And it tells you that the only way to stop the abandonment is to act. Text again, apologize, explain, soften, reach out, reach harder. Be lighter, be smaller, be funnier, be sexier, be less needy, be more available, be whatever the relationship requires. Whatever it takes to close the gap and bring the love back, bring them back, bring the belonging, the sense of terrifying losing of that belonging, bring that back. Every single one of those moves in that moment of sheer panic is a move to abandon yourself. That whole thing I just said is the engine of your anxious attachment. It is not the fear of being abandoned by your partner or friend or whoever. It's the habit, the desperate willingness to abandon yourself to prevent the potential of being abandoned by someone else. Once you finally understand this, you will understand why none of the standard advice has worked for you. Because the standard advice tells you to work on the relationship, work on your self-worth, and to work on being more secure. But your panic does not care, does not give a fuck about your self-worth in the moment. It does not care. Your panic can only ever offer you a deal, a terrible deal. It says, abandon yourself a little bit right now, and the bad feeling will stop. That's the deal. And the fucked up thing about it is it's right. I mean, it will stop briefly, but then it will come back louder with more anxiety and more intensity because your body just learned that self-abandonment works a little. At least it lessens the intensity. And every time you take the panic's shit deal of abandoning yourself, you reinforce the dreaded anxious attachment loop. You empower that loop, which means that the leverage point, the most important moment, is the moment it's trying to give you a deal. It's the moment of the deal. It is the moment in the silence when your panic is rising the most, when every cell of your body is screaming, text them, explain, soften, reach out, fix this. And you choose in that moment not to abandon yourself, to stay with yourself, even though every part of you wants to, even though it feels like you're fucking gonna die, especially when you feel like that. If you want help to learn more strategies to stop abandoning yourself, you can book a call with me. The link is down below. This is how you work in your panic silence, okay? I'm about to tell you that there are 4 specific moves that will finally begin to heal you. You will be on the right track of healing for this, okay? So let me tell you exactly what I did to heal myself and what I've watched 1,000 women do to heal it in themselves. The work that I've done with tons of women, all right? But I want to say this up front. This is not a quick fix. It is not a 5-step plan. It is not something you do once and then you're done and then it's like magically fixed. It is not that way. It is a practice you take up the way you take up running. You do it every day. You get a little bit stronger each week. You have setbacks sometimes, maybe you hurt yourself, maybe you can't run as much, but you keep going. And you keep going because you're worth it. Just the fact that you keep going actually tells your system, your nervous system, that you are worth it. And it starts to break it up. Okay, so here's the practice. Move 1. Name the deal. When the panic rises in the silence, the unanswered text, right? The gap, the cold tone, the feeling that, oh my God, I've lost them. The moment when you feel yourself frantically reaching to try to fix the thing, pause, my dear. Breathe, pause, name what is being offered to you out loud or silently. Say, my panic is offering me a shit deal that if I abandon myself, the bad feeling will stop or go away. Just name it. Just name it out loud to yourself. You are not fighting the panic. You actually can't fight the panic. Like you're not making it go away. Just simply try to see it clearly for what it is. Because once you pause, once you name it and see it, you then have a choice that you didn't have before. Before you were just on automatic pilot, taking the deal and doing it, and then having it pause a little bit, feel better, and then hating yourself even more. So pause, name it, see it, and then you have a choice that you didn't have before. And then we're going to move on to move 2. Refusing the deal. This is the next move. And the action is going to run counter to the panic, okay? The action of not acting. You do not text. You do not explain. You do not soften. You do not reach out. You stay with yourself in the silence, not as punishment to them, not as a tactic, but certainly, by the way, not as a manipulation. But because letting the bad feeling or that uncomfortable, that panic feeling rise without giving it the relief of self-abandonment is the only way your nervous system learns that the bad feeling, that panic, is survivable. Listen to me. I don't want to pretend otherwise. It will feel like you're dying. I am not kidding you. I've lived this 100 times, okay? Your body will tell you that something desperate and terrible is about to happen if you don't act. It will scream this at you somatically. But it is wrong. It is lying. Nothing is about to happen. The silence is not the abandonment. The silence is just silence. And the panic is just panic. You are feeling the terror you felt as a child. Let yourself be there with yourself in the desperation that arises, in the silence, without flinching or looking away. So that is move 2. Again, none of this is easy, but it is the path to healing. Move 3. Move your body. Move the body. Now, once you've refused the deal, you have to put that panic, that energy somewhere. You cannot just sit still with it. The energy has to go somewhere. So the third move is to move your body. I don't care what you do. Get up, walk, shake, breathe out longer than you breathe in. Wash your face with freezing water. Go jump up and down for a few minutes. Play a musical, learn something, learn a language, play a musical instrument, sing, hum. Step outside, call a friend, but do not talk about the relationship, him or her. Talk about anything else. I don't care what it is, okay? Engage another part of your life that has nothing to do with the relationship. Just move your body, go for a hike, do anything. Don't be on your phone, don't try not to doom scroll, do something, okay? Okay, move 4. Choose yourself. The last move sounds really simple, but it's not. All of these moves sound fairly simple, all right? But know that every time you refuse the shitty deal that your panic is trying to give you to do something to fix it, know that every time you refuse that deal, you are choosing yourself. Every time you don't text, you are choosing yourself. Every time you don't explain yourself, you are choosing yourself. Every time you stay with yourself in the silence and sit with your own panic and work through it, you are choosing yourself. It will not feel at the time like you are choosing yourself. It will feel like you're losing them and that you're dying, but you are not. You are choosing yourself first. And here's the part that took me years to understand. If choosing yourself loses them, then they are someone that you could only have by abandoning yourself. That means you couldn't actually have had them at all. You cannot be in a relationship where you cannot be in the relationship. Does that make sense? Whatever you had was something you were paying for with pieces of you. So the work every day, in every moment of the panic, is to refuse to pay any more with the parts of yourself. Even if it means they leave. Even if they don't come back. Even if you have to learn to be with yourself in the silence forever, especially if it means that. And it won't mean that, by the way. So this is what healing actually looks like, because I want to be honest with you about what it looks like, because the wellness industry will lie to you about it. Healing anxious attachment does not look like you never feel that panic again. I still feel it sometimes. After 20 plus years of this work, and I teach it, I show people the way, it is way quieter. It is way shorter. It doesn't even reach full panic. And it certainly does not run my life anymore. But I am not a person who has magically transcended having any anxiety or an anxious, sometimes nervous system. Okay? I live in the world. I'm a person. But I am a person who's learned to stay in my own skin when my nervous system is speaking loudly, when it's in panic. That's what healing actually is. It's not the absence of panic, but the refusal to abandon yourself because of it. And here's what happens slowly when you practice this. Your panic shows up less because your nervous system learns over hundreds or thousands of repetitions that silence is not the real abandonment. It's not even why you panic. Panic happens because you abandon yourself. When you actually heal, you start to learn in real time that you don't have to abandon yourself anymore. There comes a moment, and it may take a long time, but it comes when your body realizes that the person who finally showed up to keep you safe is you, and you aren't going anywhere. Not him, not her, not them, not someone yet to come. And after that, the panic has nothing to bargain with because the deal it's offering no longer makes sense to you. Now you can choose yourself in the silence, but can you choose yourself in an argument? If you don't know your starting gate role in conflicts, you'll abandon yourself there too. Watch this video on the screen to find out which role traps you.